Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so today we're going to do Sutra 1.4. Last time in the previous video we did Sutra 1.3, which was Tada Drashtu Swarupe Vasthanam. So today we're going to do Sutra 1.4 and we're going to see what happens when the mind is not stilled and what's really happening amongst all of us, unless we're yogis who are in the pursuit of samadhi or in samadhi. But unless that is occurring, we're going to see what's really happening in the common yogi, or the yogi who is pursuing it and who has not really attained it just yet. So to begin, if we remember, the last verse was 1.3, Tada Drashtu Swarupe Vasthanam. So the seer abides in its own nature. So we explained that when the mind is stilled, then what happens is the seer ends up abiding in its own nature. So remember, the mind has vrittis, has constant fluctuations, has constant thoughts, ideas, emotions, feelings, and it keeps going on and on. I have to do this, I have to do that, my name is this, my name is that. Anger, jealousy, frustration, happiness, all these different feelings and emotions are occurring within the mind, also known as the chitta. And remember that if we still the mind, then the seer abides in its own nature. But what happens when we do not still the mind? What happens when the mind is not stilled and we are in the pursuit of it? So this is what this verse is saying. Vritti sarupyam itaratra. Vritti sarupyam itaratra. When the mind is not stilled, when you have not achieved the goal of yoga, what is occurring is that Purusha, or consciousness, the seer, takes the form of the vrittis. The seer, Purusha, takes the form of the fluctuations of the mind. Now, what does this exactly mean? What does it mean for the seer to take the form of the fluctuations of the mind? Or for the seer to take the form of the mind? Now, I thought the seer, I thought consciousness was immaterial. I thought it was eternal. It doesn't change. And if the fluctuations of the mind, if they're changing, and then the seer starts to change, then doesn't that break the idea that the seer is eternal? And doesn't that break the idea that the seer doesn't change at all? But really, what's happening here, even though the verse is saying that consciousness takes the form of the vrittis, what's really happening is that it appears to take the form of the vrittis. It appears to be so, but it's not actually happening in that manner. So the commentators expound and slowly break the sutra down. So this is what is occurring. If the mind is not stilled, then the seer is not abiding in its own nature. What's happening is the seer is being absorbed through the vrittis. The seer is being absorbed through the mind. So what is happening is that the seer, pure consciousness, Purusha, is aware of the fluctuations of the mind. So whatever is happening in the mind, the seer is observing it, and it's being sucked in. Because the mind is still going through its vrittis. The mind is still having its thoughts, ideas, principles, pleasure, pain, delusion, etc. So as long as that keeps occurring in the mind, the seer will keep being absorbed within the mind. But what happens is, at some point, it appears that the seer is the same as what's occurring in the mind. It appears that the seer is the same as the different thoughts and ideas and principles and all these things that we're going through, these experiences that the mind is going through. It appears that that is our identity. It appears that whatever I think about myself, whatever I think about this body, this mind or soul, or even whatever thoughts that I have, that's my identity. Whatever emotions I have, feelings that I have, that's my identity. And this is the illusion. This is what is known as the conjunction. So when consciousness is being conscious of the mind, it is being confounded as these two being the exact same thing. But that is not the case. So what happens is the next question that we explore is, why are these two seen as the same? Why are these two seen as exactly the same? And why is it saying that? Why is the verse saying that the soul or consciousness, which is eternal and immaterial, taking the form of the riddhis? Why is that happening? So the commentators, I went through the commentators. We have Vyasa, we have Vachaspati Mishra, we have Vijnana Bhikshu, we have Hariharananda, we have Ramananda Saraswati, we have various commentators. And what they seem to be agreeing upon, two explanations as to why consciousness and the mind are confounded and to be the same exact thing. The first explanation is proximity. They say the mind is like a magnet and is immediately drawn to Purusha. The mind is like a magnet and is drawn to consciousness, the soul. And what that means is that the mind, the material mind, and Purusha have a beginningless relationship. They have a beginningless relationship. On and on, it keeps going. So what that means is that we need to actually go into Sankhya metaphysics. Sankhya metaphysics, and we'll go into this in further videos, but Sankhya metaphysics, remember, in yoga Sankhya is a different school of thought. And yoga and Sankhya are both schools of thought that are sister schools, that are very associated with each other. Yoga is concerned with the practice, roughly concerned with the practice of how to achieve the goal. And yoga takes and borrows from Sankhya's metaphysics, the tools, the reality, what's going on, what can we use to achieve the goal. So here in Sankhya metaphysics, we have, once again, Purusha and we have Prakriti. We have infinite, changeless, eternal soul, and we have the material world, which in its original form is also infinite, changes, and we'll go through that. But we have the material world, and we also have this immaterial soul. And really what happens is the immaterial soul interacts with the material world, with the material essence called Prakriti. And then Prakriti starts to evolve. It starts to evolve. The intellect comes out of it. Then the ego comes out of it. Then the mind comes out of it. And then the different elements that we have different elements, different senses. They call them tanmatras and mahabhutas, all these different senses and things all come together and form the material world around us. But all these essentially came from Prakriti, the material world. Purusha is what instigates, what begins the evolution of the material world. But we'll go into this later. But the whole idea here is that Purusha and Prakriti, soul and matter, have a beginningless relationship. They have always been associated with each other. There's no beginning, no start to it. And so it is the onus, or it is the responsibility of the practitioner to end that relationship in a way, to liberate the soul from the material binding around it. The Purusha that is existent within, let's say, this body, is surrounded by the Prakriti of this material body and the mind, the material mind. And it is the responsibility of the practitioner to use the material mind, which is animated by the soul, to liberate itself and free the soul, so that the soul can be in its own liberated experience. This will explain. But remember, right now we are on the topic of proximity. So why are these two confounded? Why is the mind seen to be similar to the soul? And why is it saying that the soul takes the shape of the thoughts? It's proximity because of the beginningless relationship. Because these two, the mind and the soul, have been in a relationship with each other for such a long time that it's naturally seen through proximity that you're going to confound these two. It's been like this for such a long time, so naturally it's going to be that way. The mind will think of itself as the essence of the being. The mind will think of itself as the essence, and it will be seen, it will appear that the soul will take the shape of the mind. So I guess roughly we can use the example of, let's say you have a friend, you've been born around the same year, around the same couple of days. You've been raised together. Your parents have raised you together. His or her parents have raised you together. You have eaten together. You have had sleepovers with each other. You went to different like Chuck E. Cheese's and Funplex and all these different places together. You celebrated birthdays together. You've done everything together. To a point where your emotions, the way that you react, the way that you speak, your mannerisms are so similar to your friends. And so, in a way, everyone's constantly seeing you guys and telling you guys that you guys are so similar to each other. In fact, you're like the same. You're exactly the same. So, in a way, over time, you may seem like this person is exactly me. This person's me. This person's just, we're similar and we have so many similar mannerisms. But in reality, you guys are completely different beings. You guys have a different appearance. You do have different mannerisms. You have a different structure of the brain, different structure of the mind, different sanskaras, which we'll go into with the mental impressions, sanskaras. But it appears that you guys are the same. So, with that example, just think of it that Purusha and Prakriti are seen to be together. And the mind and Purusha are seen to be the same in some way. That the soul is adopting whatever the mind is going through, and they're conflated to each other because of proximity, the beginningless relationship that they've always had. So the second reason, which is a very interesting reason as to why these two, Purusha and Prakriti, or Purusha and the mind, remember the mind is a part of Prakriti, which we'll explain, why the soul and the mind are seen as the same is also due to reflection. The example given here is of a diamond and a china rose, some sort of a rose with this reddish color. So take a diamond. The commentators explained it very nicely. You take a diamond, and a diamond with its very clear or whitish type of quality. It retains this beauty, this sense of reflecting quality of it. And if you take a rose, a china rose, a red rose, and you put it near the diamond, then what happens is the diamond starts to become red. But it's not becoming red. It appears to be red. If you take this diamond and you take a rose next to it, the diamond will start to have this reddish quality. And not only that, you'll start to see ridges and different appearances that the rose had that is being superimposed onto the diamond. So now this diamond that was once clear and had a whitish appearance, all of a sudden has this reddish appearance. But what happens is one starts to think that the diamond is changing. The diamond's qualities are changing, but that is not actually the case. So in the same manner, Purusha, the soul, has the same quality of this diamond to reflect. And what's happening is the mind, like the rose, is being superimposed onto the diamond. The mind is presenting whatever it is experiencing to the soul. And when that's happening, whatever experiences you have in the mind, the riddhis have the natures of pleasure, pain, and delusion. So whatever experiences you have, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm confused, I am the agent of my actions, I'm jealous, I'm angry, whatever it is, these feelings are occurring within the mind. But because the mind is presenting this to consciousness, which consciousness is just observing naturally, what's occurring is that it appears that these feelings and emotions are occurring within consciousness and the soul. But that's not the case. It's actually just occurring within the mind. And the mind is just projecting it onto the soul. And just in the same manner that the rose is projecting the redness onto the diamond. But the diamond retains its essence, just like the soul retains its essence and never changes. So due to reflection and due to proximity, the beginningless relationship, these are the reasons why the soul, Purusha, appears to take the form of the riddhis. But we have to understand that when the mind is not still, when the goal of yoga is not attained, then the Purusha will always be filtered through this. So any thoughts that are occurring within the machine-like material mind that each individual has, the consciousness is just experiencing that. And then remember, the mind is being animated by consciousness. The mind, remember, the material things, the mind, it's just, they even call it, it has no sentience. It's just an instrument. And the instrument is being animated, given life, given some sort of an animate structure through consciousness. Purusha is allowing it to it's giving this instrument some sort of life, some animation. So this instrument that is being animated is being used to remove this lack of knowledge that most people have, which is that I am the soul and I am not the body and the mind, which we'll understand afterwards. We'll go through it. But we're using that same materiality that is being animated by the soul to realize that and to remove error, which is that I am the body and the mind. So we have to understand here that really what's happening is the mind sees, let's say, a pot. So the mind sees a pot right here. But it's really your senses, the eyes. The eyes see a pot. And what happens is the mind contacting the senses, the pot will occur within the mind. The vritti, you will have a vritti of the pot. You will have a fluctuation in the mind of a pot. And that fluctuation of the mind is then presented to the seer, to the Purusha. And it appears as if the pot is occurring within the Purusha. But no, all it is doing is just reflecting it. So the Purusha is experiencing a pot. But then the mind comes in. The pot is good. The pot is bad. I hate the pot. I like the pot. The pot is this and that. And that's really essentially what's happening. So the main thing here is there's a saying by Panchashika, which is one of the descendants of Kapila. We'll go over this, but Kapila is associated to be the founder of Sankhya, the school of thought. And then there's these descendants, this lineage. Panchashika is one of the descendants, and it's said that his teachings, his writings are lost, but some are still there, or I guess because some commentators are referring to him. So he states, Ekameva darshanam, only one sight, only one appearance, or only one knowledge. So what does that mean? Once again, remember, there is the Purusha, there's the material mind, so the soul, the material mind, and then the pot outside. So the pot is just going into the material mind, it's being seen, and the soul is experiencing it. There is no separate form of knowledge. There's only one form of knowledge that's occurring, which is the pot. The pot is being perceived by the senses, which are being relayed to the mind, and that is being relayed to consciousness and reflected by consciousness. There is no separate knowledge like, oh, the pot that the image of the pot that goes to the mind is different from the image of the pot that goes to the soul. No. They're exactly just one experience, one form of knowledge, and one image. That's essentially what is occurring. So Ekameva darshanam is just one knowledge. And that is very important to understand. Because whatever the mind is experiencing, Purusha, consciousness, is experiencing the same exact thing. But we'll go into it later. So why is consciousness not experiencing every single mind? Why is consciousness not experiencing all the things around it? And it's because that consciousness, for some reason, it is limited to only one mind. It is limited to only one body. So the consciousness is experiencing one experience. Otherwise, it'd be experiencing everything because it's infinite. So somehow it is being limited. It is being, somehow something is occurring where the mind is only experiencing one thing, one person's experience. Why am I not experiencing someone else's experience? So we'll go through that slowly by slowly, but understand that vritti sarupyam itaratra. Itaratra elsewhere. Itaratra elsewhere. So the vrittis. So what happens is being or consciousness starts to be taken in elsewhere. If the mind is not still, then what happens is consciousness starts to be taken in elsewhere rather than in itself. So we've done verse 1.4. We will go now into verse 1.5 in the next video. which is interesting because it'll explain the 5 types of vrittis. We have these fluctuations in the mind, and we'll slowly go into what are these obstacles, what are these things that are occurring in the mind that we need to still. Because when we say we have to still the mind and we have to still the vrittis, then we have to know what is it that which we're stilling, right? What is it? What are the 5 types of thoughts, emotions, whatever, etc. So we'll know exactly what it is what we're stilling. But I will make a video on Sankhya metaphysics later on. And but besides that, let me know if you have any questions, any comments, concerns, and I will keep making these videos. Thank you for watching.